Welcome to my podcast, Today's Dream, Tomorrow's Reality. My name is Vicky Poole. I'm a master transformational coach and hypnotist specializing in habit change. And this podcast is sponsored by the Enlightened Peach. And it's all about embracing our mosaic life. Well, now some of you may ask, what is a mosaic life anyway? Well, it is recognizing that all the pieces of our life, the good, the bad, the indifferent, have all come together to make us who we are. You change any one thing, and we are different people. With that in mind, I invite you to embrace your perceived imperfections and celebrate who you are. This podcast is unedited and raw, just like life. And I am your host, and I have a special guest that I'll introduce in just a moment. But before I do, I would love for you to do me a solid, and that is to leave a comment and like, subscribe, and share. So now let's get started. So this lovely lady right here, Rose Monk, we were just discussing right before we got on here how we even know each other. So we really didn't know, and it's still we don't know each other. We just know the names. We've connected from a couple of groups that we're in, and she has actually joined my Facebook group, Stand Up and Stand Out. So thank you for doing that, Rose. But I want to pop in and just figure out. I know you said you live in Florida, you have horses, you have Great Danes. Wow, that sounds like a lot on your plate, right? So, what do you, um, um, what took you to Florida, or are you native to Florida?
I'm not native to Florida. I was born and raised in Michigan.
Oh,
I spent a little
big
time
difference.
right after high school. There was a huge snowstorm, and I just drove south, and I ended up on the beach in Melbourne Beach, Florida, and I hung out there for years and met my husband down here. And we ended up having several kids. And one day he decided he wanted to get a better job and moved us to Nebraska. And I
Oh
said,
my
"Oh,
gosh.
you don't like cows or corn, you shouldn't be here." And I don't. So you've got 2 years. And at the end of 2 years, I had the whole house packed up, and he came home from work and he's like, "What? Are you leaving me?" And I said, "No, we're going back to Florida. I am done. It is so cold here. You can't go outside in the winter. It's so hot. You can't go outside in the summer. So we have to go back to Florida." And he goes, "I'll see what I can do." And he came home the next day and he said, "Oh my God, I got a job in Denver." And I'm like, and you are excited about that, but it snows there. And we ended up spending 17 years in Denver
Oh
raising
my gosh.
kids. And it was a really great place to raise a family. But when everybody got off to college except my youngest, um, COVID hit, and she wanted to play soccer year round, and she wanted to learn to surf, and she couldn't go to school. Everything was online. So I said, "You know what? We go to Florida." And I worked down here at the Space Center a lot. So I knew my way around pretty well. I'm like, let's just drive. Can't take a plane because it's COVID, but we'll drive and we'll stay at a hotel or we'll find someplace to stay. So we got down here and she loved it. And I said, "Well, my office is in Denver. We gotta go back." So we spent about a month down here, and I saw everybody online. And then I went back to the office where you could see some people or not, and nobody came in. And we did that like 4 months in a row. And finally I thought, why are we driving back and forth? If no one's going to come in the office, we'll just do this thing online. And she sent me a link for the house that I'm in now. And she said, I found it. This is our house. so, so I called and they wouldn't show it to me or anything because of COVID. So I said, can we buy it online? Can we buy a house online? I didn't know how to do it. And of course the real estate agent said, I don't know how. So we ended up, I think I was probably the first person who kind of did that. I bought the house sight unseen through the bank, and we drove down here and moved in, but we ended up having to redo the whole house. But
Oh,
that was it's in a
yeah.
perfect position. It was a good deal, and I loved it. And I still love it. And so I'm
Beautiful.
here, even
So
though
what do you do? Because you said you worked at the Space Center
well,
and then you
for
have an
25
office in
years,
Denver. So,
yeah, so for 25 years, I was an architectural engineer for design management.
okay.
And
I
I
don't
did
know
a lot.
what does that mean? In
I create exhibits for education or museums or corporate interiors, storefronts,
Okay.
trade show booths, things like that,
Okay.
websites, any kind of marketing. And it was a natural development for me to roll into my own business. And so I've had my own business since 1998.
Okay.
About 25 years into that, I had a horrible head-on collision that took my memory.
Oh my gosh.
I know it, and I knew something was wrong, but I didn't know what. But my kids looked huge. Like, you went to bed as a baby and now you're like 9? What happened? And I just could not put the two and two together. I guess because I had a horrible concussion and a brain injury. And
So were you in the hospital for a long time?
no, no one knew. I didn't tell anybody. I just faked it. You know how people fake that they're okay?
Yeah.
Because I didn't want anybody to know. And I thought, well, maybe I'll wake up tomorrow and be gone. It's probably just the concussion. Yeah. And then all of a sudden I realized I was using my phone for everything. Oh, today's Monday, get the kids up. Oh, today's Tuesday, we got to go to soccer. Oh, today's Wednesday, softball or basketball or football. And I lived by my calendar. And I realized that I didn't know what we did yesterday. And I didn't know who my kids were. And it just kept getting worse. And I thought, you know what? I think I'm dying. I'm going to take my kids on vacation because I'm going to have a good time before I leave the earth. And I took them all on vacation and I let them bring friends, whatever. And I didn't know what I was doing. I literally didn't know what I was doing. So
Wow.
I ended up 6 weeks on the road and I thought I was gone for a day. And I didn't realize it, but I woke up in the middle of the night and I slid my phone off of the nightstand and I crawled into the bathroom and I called my husband. I'm like, babe, I've been kidnapped. And he's like, what? Where are the kids? And I'm like, God, I hope they're with you. And he goes, no, they're with you. And I'm like, what? There's bodies all over the floor. And he's like, it's 3 a.m. Are you having a nightmare? And I'm like, no, I'm wide awake. And he goes, okay, think about this. Would they let you keep your phone? I'm like, oh, that's a good point. So I peeked out there and I'm like, no, there's literally, but he goes, those are your kids and their friends. And I'm like, those are our babies? Because I still don't have any memory.
Wow.
He goes, um, just turn the light on. Bree's with you, everybody's with you. And I'm like, really? And I looked out there again and I had a suitcase and I'm like, I packed for this. And he's like, okay, you need to come home. You've been gone 6 weeks. Your bank account is really low. I don't know what you're doing. And I'm like, what? Where have I been? He goes, you've been everywhere. Miami, Washington, D.C., Hersheytown, Pennsylvania, St. Louis. You went through the arch. I mean, you've been to, he listed off all these things and I had been sending him photos every day.
Wow.
And I said, really? He goes, look at your phone. So I did. And I went, oh my God, I'm getting the kids up and I'm driving home. And then we're going to go to the hospital. And he goes, that's fine. I just need you to know something before you get here. So, okay. And he goes, we're not married. Oh, okay. Do we live together? Are we in the same house? He goes, no, I'm in the same house. We got divorced. I'm in the same house. Come here, bring the kids. I'll take you to the hospital. So I drove straight there. It took me about 20 hours to get there, and I didn't stop for anything. And as soon as I got out of the car, I had no muscle. I could not walk, talk right. I mean, something was wrong. I knew something was wrong. And he just picked me up and took me to the Swedish National, I think it's called, in Denver. And I met the most incredible intern. And she was like, I know what's going on with you. I was like, oh, great. Can we fix it? And she goes, no.
That's great.
Oh my God, I'm going to be like this for the rest of my life. And she goes, it's highly unlikely you'll get any of your memory back, but you can start from here. And I'm like, that is so nice, but I'm not recording this. And so tomorrow I'm not going to remember that you said that. And this is going to be so difficult because I'm a single mom, new, and I haven't slept for more than 24 hours. And I know as soon as I go to sleep, I'm not going to know who I am again. And so she said, we have a phone, so we're going to start recording. And I did that for about 6 months with her. And she had me drink a cup, like a half a cup of fish oil a day and take all these supplements. And I got about 3 weeks, I got my memory back. I can remember everything but about a week of our trip.
Hmm.
And I was like, this is so fascinating. And I've always been fascinated about how the brain works. And it got so deeply personal during that time that I realized that my own emotional patterns and my memory are tied to my brain chemistry. And I started to learn about neurotransmitters. There's 26 of them, but we really only focus on about 5 for mental health, dopamine, norepinephrine, serotonin, oxytocin, those kind of things. And I realize how they shape your mood
Mm-hmm.
and your energy and your motivation. So I started kind of exercising how to boost them and taking and changing my diet and my lifestyle. And I just started getting better. I was 3 years into physical therapy and my body started working right and my mind was working right. And I went back to school and I got another degree because 2 weren't enough. I
Of
got another
course.
degree in licensed professional counseling and brain coaching through Ammon University. And I helped myself with that. But when I was doing it, I wasn't planning on opening private practice. But I had to do an internship to actually get my master's. So I met this girl and she just seemed perfect. It took me a year to find her, maybe 2 years to find her. And she was a little 29-year-old Jessica. And I just loved her. And I'm like, even if I don't go into private practice, I can help you with the business end because that's what I do. I can make your office look great. I can build you a kiosk in schools where kids can come up and sign in and get information about mental health. We could do all that. And so she and I had a really great relationship. And she was pregnant about 3 months into our internship. And I scheduled with her for 9 months. And she didn't feel very good. And she's like, I'm high risk. I'm going to go home. So you're going to have to take over. And I was working like 90 hours a week. And I didn't know anything about it. It was my first patient. She came in like this. She had sliced her arms down and she was
Mm.
coming from the hospital. She was 14. And I said, hey, can you wait in the lobby for a minute? And I ran in. I called the helpline and I said, I'm a new counselor. I have a child who has tried to commit suicide, and I'm going to need somebody to walk me through this because I can't send her home like this. And they sent her home from the hospital already. So I'm waiting for her parents to arrive. And I didn't know what to do. And they were so amazing. They walked me through it. I knew what to do naturally, and it just was a complete fit. So I called her and I said, stay home as long as you like. I got this. So I can do that. I can do the rest. And it just worked flawlessly. And then about 5 months into her pregnancy, she came in for the day. It was a Friday, and I had gone home. And I said, if you need anything, just holler, I'll come back. And I hadn't had a weekend off in so long. But I was coming in tomorrow morning, which was a Saturday morning, just to see a few patients. And I had this bad feeling. And when I left, she didn't look great, but she was boss. She can do what she wants. So I left, and all she's going to do is sit there, right? She miscarried and died in the office. It was awful.
Oh
It
my
was just
gosh.
awful. And I loved her. And the baby survived, but she did not. And I had to take myself out into private practice during my internship and open private practice. And it wasn't long after that, we had the school shooting at STEM school. And I had 3 kids at the school during the shooting. And so I knew what people were going through. So I opened up my practice to any child who was at the school for free. Any parents who were in their children were in the room where the shooter was. The shooter took out my son's best friend, who was just very close to all of us. And so that was devastating. And so my practice was flooded with all of these teens and parents dealing with crisis. And I did good with it. And I handled it. And I thought, okay, so this is my work. This is my path. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. And since then, it has just grown over time to where I've shaped my niche. And I've kind of come to know about self-acceptance, self-expression, self-support, and how it plays an integral role on making small steps creates huge strides for emotional and cognitive control. And through that, I just decided to go ahead and get fully licensed. And when I got fully licensed, I started expanding my practice into seeing relationships because for some reason, God had a lot of people call me to fix their marriage. And I'm like, um, okay, I'll give it a shot. I mean, it's not my forte, but okay. So when I did the Gottman series and got all of the CEUs under my belt, and I started with relationship work, and it has really changed the way I see people and how they interact. And so that, along with all of my own life experiences, I've just come to the point where I have decided that one-on-one isn't working for me.
Mhm.
So I'm expanding into talks where people can have a sip and social Wednesday night. And it's just me and another therapist, just like this. We're just going to sit and chat about self-acceptance and self-expression. And people can ask questions about their emotional instabilities, what they're realizing, whether they're in survival mode, if they'd like to get past it, and we can give them some good, honest help. Whether it's in talks like that or online retreats, in-person retreats, or even if they want to sign up for a program. And so we're just basically redefining what it means to live with energy and elegance with a brain that's fully in sync with your heart.
Beautiful. I love that. I love that. And that's you got a lot to unpack there. But as you were talking, a couple of things that came to my mind is that one of my best friend, um, she had COVID. She went into the hospital like the day before Christmas, and this has been a while. But while she was in there, she got so sick. They had her on a trach. They had her, she was in a coma, and she was in there for months and months and months. And so her family didn't celebrate Christmas until like June, because they left everything up until she got home and seemed better. But she's not the same. And the interesting thing is, so the brain is an amazing thing. It always fascinates me, and I wish I knew how to help her because I'm not a brain expert by any means. But like I remember after she had gotten home from the hospital and stuff, and she'd been back for a little bit. She called me one day, and her husband's name is Jack, and she said, "You got to help me." And I said, "What?" She said, "Jack and I are having an argument right now." And I said, "Okay." She said, "So let me ask you." And her youngest child's name is Ashlyn, and she said, "Is Ashlyn in middle school or high school?" And I said, "Mickey," I said, "Ashlyn's been out of school for a long time." And she said, "Oh, damn it." And I said, "What?" She said, "Jack told me that, and I knew it was wrong." And so she has so much of her memory that she doesn't have now. Like she doesn't remember how to drive a car. She was a hairstylist, an amazing hairstylist, although she really wanted to do something else. But she doesn't remember how to do hair. She doesn't remember most anything. And she was a very articulate person. She was very like she wanted things done just the right way, and she would make sure they were. She was the one that was always in charge. Like they'd have a big gathering at the house, and she made sure everything went smoothly. So after she was home the first time they had a gathering, it was like she was a bystander. It was like she would walk around and take some pictures, and I would kind of walk around with her, and she would stop a minute and she'd say, "Well, I don't know what I'm supposed to do now." And then she would just move to a different place. And it's such an odd feeling because one of the things that I've discovered through this, and I love her dearly, we've been friends for over 30 years, that a lot of our connection with people is our memories. And when she doesn't have those memories and she doesn't have like this this drive that she used to for the things that she's doing, that it's harder for us to connect in the same way. And now she's to the place where um like she's over a little over an hour from me, so it's not like I can just pop in. And I have been trying to get in touch with her for over a month and can't reach her. And so I ended up calling one of her daughters, or I messaged her on Facebook. And she said, well, she said, to be honest with you, she said, Mom doesn't even pick up her phone hardly anymore. And she said, I think she needs to go back to the doctor, but I don't know what's going on. And, and it's such a strange thing from me being outside looking at her, but you understand how she feels on her inside. And that's got to be so scary to realize, because she knows she can't remember things.
Mhm. So I got a recommendation that you can pass on to her kids.
Okay.
I would take her to an Amen clinics. AMEN, like in Jesus' name, amen.
Mm-hmm.
Clinics. And I would have her get a SPECT scan and find out how the blood is flowing through the brain. The reason for that is because during COVID, you can have little embolisms, you can have little things that clot. I had a stroke, and
See, I was
I was
kind of feeling like she had had a stroke just from the things. She doesn't have the same mobility either. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, you're totally right. Like I could not walk, I could not talk. I had to relearn everything last year. Well, about a year and a half ago. And I was like shocked that I could not get attention in the lobby at the hospital. Like I could not move my hands. I knew what I was doing. I couldn't open my eyes. It's like my body
Wow.
wasn't working. And I sat there for like 3 days before someone said, "Hey, this this woman's been here for quite some time," and they just left me there because when you get a Johnson and Johnson vaccine, you sign a waiver saying that you're okay with the risk that you might have a stroke. And if they touch you, I think then it's their fault. So they didn't really touch me. And for about 4 days, after that, I was able to kind of get my wits about me, and I texted my best friend and I showed the nurse my phone and basically said, I'm having a stroke. I'm not drunk. I've been here for a while. Can someone help me? And they came up to me and said, You're a non-stroke, non-urgent, alcohol induced patient. And I said, I haven't been seen yet. I need a CT scan. I don't drink. I'm not on any kind of drugs. I've been here since 2:30 on Wednesday. It is now Saturday morning.
Wow.
And I've been sitting right here, and I don't know if I peed because I
I
don't
was just
have
about to ask, how did you?
I don't have any body functions. And I don't even know if I was typing right. And I just told my friend, I said, I'm going to text you. I'm at the hospital. I'm 3.5 hours away from you, but I need to have some way to communicate. And I don't, my face won't work, basically. So the next day, I kind of got into a room, and they said there's nothing that they could do for me. And they introduced me to a cardiologist, and they sent me home. I wrecked my truck on the way home. I should never have been let go home. I wrecked my truck in their parking garage, and then I ran into the side of the house when I got home. I just, I had no function. And it was probably a good 6 months of, I looked like a giraffe trying to walk. I could not write. I still can't write very well. And as an artist, that's very hard for me. But being trapped in your own body like that and knowing something is wrong, it happens to go with the way things are sparking. So think about your spark plugs in your car. When one of them goes out, it backfires. Think about the oil. When it's out of oil, it stops running, right? So the best thing is to make sure it can spark and it has oil. And same with your brain. It's electrical. Give it fish oil. Give it hydration. Make sure that it has what it needs to spark. So if she's dehydrated at all, she'll have symptoms that mimic dementia. If she is low on oil, she won't spark. So she will have that circular motion of, why did I come in here? And exit the room, go, oh yeah, yeah, go back in the room. Oh, why was I in here? Exit the room. And she'll have that because it literally can't find the pathway. So some rewiring needs to be done and also some supplementation to bring that together. Usually with COVID, there's inflammation. There's lots of natural things you can take for inflammation, like tart cherry, turmeric, curcumin. Purple Power 60. I don't know if you've ever heard of C60, but that stuff's amazing. doTERRA has an excellent dual capsule, turmeric and curcumin. They also have some frankincense that's capsulized. That also reduces inflammation. 3 to 5,000 of omegas a day of high absorbency, D3 with K2. All those things can work, but I bet you she's not eating right for her body. And even
More
if
than
she
likely.
is eating, she's probably passing it before she gets all the nutrients out of it that she needs. So diet, sleep, and health are number one. Number two, find out how the blood's flowing through the brain, because that's a huge issue, especially if she's not sleeping well. Then this part of the brain, which is like the saddle, will never turn on. And if it
Hmm.
doesn't really turn on, it's really hard to make memories, right?
Yeah.
So in my practice, when people come to me and they're a little aloof like that, but they don't, I send them to Ammon clinics, or I send them to get a SEER scan. If there's a SEER scan place near you, or a SPECT scan, if there's not and your insurance won't cover it, an fMRI might get you there, but not always. There's a lot of differences between a SPECT scan and fMRI. So I recommend Ammon clinics. And there's maybe 5 or 6 throughout the US. Just go to one.
Okay. I'll definitely pass that along to her family. And because it is just mind-blowing to me, that all the things that she's had to endure from that. And I think the only reason she survived the entire thing was her daughter found out she was pregnant while Mickey was in a coma. And so they kept telling her, you're about to be a grandma, you're about to be a grandma, and all that. And I think that's the only reason that she survived, because then that's when she started getting better. But she would get better, and then they would put her back. She'd get worse. They'd put her. It was like this pinball machine, constantly going back and forth. And so it's definitely an odd experience on my
Well,
side,
I
not
could
even
hear
thinking of hers.
everything they said in my room. I could hear and I can remember.
Yeah, yeah,
Everything they said in my presence, I heard and I can remember.
yeah.
But I wasn't able to respond. And
Right.
so her not getting better might have been her own self-talk. If you think you can't, then you
Oh
can't. If
yeah.
you can, you absolutely can. So I designed a signature framework for people like that are not hospitalized. They're just working on their own through emotional crisis or transitions, life transitions like empty nest and things like that. Because you start telling yourself things that aren't true, right? The thoughts
Yeah.
aren't facts, they're just thoughts. And so I have a program that I designed called NeuroFlow. And that is a signature framework. And I designed it to guide individuals from where they are to where they want to be. And it's just like when you get into a car, you have the GPS and you stick the address in so you can get there without traffic, right? And
Hmm.
you might need a few things on the way, like gas and food. You might have to stay in a hotel, and it can find it for you. This journey with emotional freedom, you might have a few stops. You might have to stop and get some CBT. You might have to stop and get a SEER scan. You might have to stop and get some vitamins. You might have to change your diet. You're going to have a lot of stops along the way. But if you don't know where you're going, you're never going to arrive.
Yeah. Yeah.
Never going to arrive. So that journey of emotional wellness, I designed that approach to integrate neuroscience, which is all about the neurotransmitters and neurons, and movement. So yoga, working out, exercise, walking, whatever, and therapeutic insights, which is anything from EFT to EMDR to regular CBT, even coaching elements fit right into that. Super good. Spiritual growth, getting out in nature, meditating, praying, anything that brings music, sound therapy. And then we go into holistic practices, which is finding a physician or a neurologist or somebody who can speak your language. And
Yeah.
so when we reframe our beliefs about who and how we are as a human, we get better. When
Yeah.
we regulate our emotions and we decide that we have power over the patterns we have, we get better. And when we look beyond that reactivity, um, get out of survival mode and into personal growth, we're actually looking at a path to progress. And you won't arrive if you didn't know what you want. Because when you know what you want, you can say no to everything else.
That's right. Well,
Right.
I'm a transformational coach and a hypnotist. So I have actually talked to her about helping with things like that. And then, but she just kind of, you know, she doesn't really want to talk about that kind of stuff. But I don't know if it's that she cognitively can't make decisions in that way. I
Could
don't
be a
know.
capabilities issue, right? It
Pardon?
could definitely be capabilities issue.
Yeah.
It also could be support issue. She doesn't have enough self-support and she doesn't have enough support from external to make her feel like she's supported. Like this chair is supporting me now. I'm not going to fall on the ground. I know I'm supported, so I can sit here freely.
Yeah.
She might not be able to sit and cope freely without some kind of additional support because her self-support might be lacking. But
Yeah.
we wouldn't know that. Now, the hardest part of doing this kind of work is seeing how people put pressure on themselves when they are capable to figure it all out. They
Yeah.
just really feel like their growth and healing is all about time and effort. And it's not. I'm reminding my clients on a daily basis that a small step towards a big change is okay. You don't
Yeah.
have to do it all at once. And so a lot of times they just feel like they have to dive in and do everything, right? But
Yeah.
they don't.
Yeah, I know. I'm always preaching that a 1% change every day creates exponential growth, and that if you take at least a small step, you're going in the right direction. And I'm always sharing that, the only constant in life is change. So if you're not choosing to learn and grow and become, you're sliding backwards. You're not, people feel like if they make a decision not to do anything, that they're staying in the same place, but that's not true. They just can't see how far they've slid backwards until it's gotten really big. And so it's definitely an amazing thing to think about all these, because I teach all the time about our self-talk, and how I do the daily affirmation and journal prompts in the Facebook group. And like this morning, it was, or this afternoon, it was all about abundance. But abundance is not just money, it's relationships. It's all these different aspects of who we are, and looking for abundance and start creating that change 1% at a time. And the thing is that I can say all of that to her, but she doesn't connect with it, and I don't really know how to do that. And I don't want to take all your time with working on that.
You're
Um,
totally fine. You're totally fine with that because I agree with you 100%. What you are choosing to not change, you are choosing to keep the same or slide. And I do preach 1 degree change. I
yeah,
preach, man, just 1 degree. Because if you start in a parking lot and you're in one corner and you want to get to the other, if you change 1 degree, you're no longer going to end up in that corner. You're going to end up somewhere else. And so if you every day you just do 1 degree, you're going to
hmm,
end up completely different than where you when you started out. So, the one thing that I hope people get out of the talk that you and I have together, and we do have the same kind of foundation, is that your emotional foundation is built from your self-talk.
yeah,
And you know I want emotional freedom and balance to not be some far off dream, that it's achievable with one small intentional step, that it's consistent effort. It's your future doesn't need to be more of your past, and growth and healing aren't linear. Every 1 degree shift in your
yeah,
mindset, boundaries, or even in your progress is celebrating. It's worth celebrating.
yeah,
You really don't know until you've done a work for a year, and then all of a sudden you're like, wow, I've come a long way.
yeah.
I didn't really do that much, right?
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I'm always focusing on too is to write it down. to have things that you can see, because a 1% change is so imperceptible in the moment, and we become, that's our new normal, that's our new normal, that's our new normal. Like for instance, I started my whole journey because I'd been a yo-yo dieter my whole life, right? And so I decided to become a health coach. That's how I started, to take care of my health. And as I began to release weight and get better, and I was eating better and everything, I was at a place where I was giving myself a hard time because I still needed or felt like I wanted to do more changing, right? And then I saw a picture of me from when I started, and I was like, oh, I didn't realize how far I had come. And so I reference that all the time because people, like, if you're journaling as you're going, in 6 months you can look back and say, oh my gosh, 6 months ago today I thought this, and I haven't thought that way since then. And you can see the growth. But if you're not noting it and writing it down, then, or logging it somehow, then you feel like you've always been the way you are right now. You can't see how far you've come. And so to me, that's really, really important, for myself, to be able to see pictures or to see something I've written down and see the growth. Because when it's small incremental changes that are make it easy and smooth and calm and relaxed, they're also ones that you don't notice once you get past them.
I know when you get out of the victim stage
Yeah,
into survival mode, you almost live there. As long as you're surviving, why would your brain need to change, right?
yeah,
So you don't really get into action or true action. And when you do, it seems like you've been there forever.
yeah.
You don't remember where you started. And so for me, I use something called the chart.
Okay.
And I give it to all of my clients that come, whether they are a patient or a client. And I say that because my license is only good in Colorado. So if you're outside of Colorado, if your feet are not in Colorado, there are a lot of things I cannot do with you.
Yeah,
Um, but as a coach, even a life coach or an emotional coach or a brain coach, I still give the chart. And the
hmm,
chart listing basically who and how you are as a human being and what's important to you. And then you work on them. And if you are satisfied with that, it goes to the bottom. It doesn't matter if it is the most important thing to you, it goes to the bottom because you no longer need to work on it. It's automatic. You're on autopilot, right?
hmm,
And part of the process is stepping out of autopilot from your
yeah,
emotional reactions and into a flow that gets you knowing what you want. And
yeah,
so that chart, and then all of a sudden, 6 weeks have gone by, and you're like, man, I have checked all these things off. I actually don't have that reaction anymore. Every time I feel that way, I do this instead. And you can really visually see your response. Now, not everybody, people who are PTSD and people who are ADHD, they do not do the chart.
yeah,
They'll do it for a day or two.
yeah, yeah,
They do it for a day or two. I'm ADHD and I have PTSD. So I always preach, you got to do it for 21 days. If you come back to me in 3 days and say it doesn't work, I'm going to be like, that's bull crap.
yeah,
You got to give it some effort. It takes effort. It took you 20 years or 30 years to get into this position. Can you give me 21 days?
yeah,
Just give me 20
yeah,
consecutive days. And that way you're building a healthy habit. Just like breaking a habit takes more than 3 days.
yeah.
Building a healthy habit is going to take you more than 3 days. And so I always try to get people to stick with the 21-day healthy habit form.
Yeah, that sounds
Right?
great. Well, with my clients, I don't have a 21-day form, but I do have things that they fill out that they rate things, right? Um, but one of the things that I do, because I'm a hypnotist as well, so after we finish the coaching, if they say, I really think I'm going to try to do all this journaling that you've told me to journal, and I'm going to do all these things, I say, well, is it okay if we, in our hypnosis session, we slip in a little thing that says that your subconscious mind is going to make sure that daily you do this? Sure. So it helps, though, believe it or not, for me to, in the hypnosis part of it, to put that suggestion in there that they will do what they said they're going to do. Because to me, the biggest thing is we've spent so much time not keeping our word to ourselves that our subconscious mind says, She said she was going to get up and go work out. She said that before. Just tell her to turn the clock off and go to sleep, and it'll start sabotaging you instead of supporting you. So there are so many things about our conscious and our subconscious, our superconscious that just really is amazing if you can figure out how to get it to work on your behalf. So if you start keeping your word to yourself, I tell my clients all the time, then your subconscious is going to say when that clock goes off and you roll over because it's cold outside, it's so nice and snuggly under the covers, your subconscious is going to say, you feel better when you get up and you go. You would feel so much better, and it's going to get louder and louder and louder till you get up, you put on your shoes, your clothes, and you go out there. And so over time, it becomes your biggest cheerleader.
Yeah. I do that with self-hypnosis. I don't know if you've ever experienced self-hypnosis for ADD.
Mm-hmm.
And I do that with a lot of my patients where they define what they want. I also
Mm-hmm.
use EFT
Yeah, I
that
do
way as
EFT as
well.
well. Yeah.
And yeah, that conversion part where they begin to support themselves and they have self-expression, they have self acceptance, they have self-compassion. It is such an aha moment. Like they realize their emotions are connected to their neurotransmitters
Yeah.
and they have control of it. They control it instead of letting your emotions control you. No, I should just stay in bed. Man, it's just so comfy.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah. Yeah.
you don't have to. Your life doesn't have to be controlled by that. You get to change. You don't have to, but you get to. And
Yeah.
so we actually can redefine and rewrite whatever's coming next. It doesn't have to be more of our past. And so, most of the time I direct people into free talks that I have and it gives them a taste of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then they'll show up for um, maybe like I have a 5 hours to emotional freedom program on Thursday. And throughout the 5 hours, every 30 minutes or 15 to 30 minutes, we do a new worksheet just based on your problem, not what I think you should be working on, but what you actually want to work on by yourself. And it's online. And so by the end of the day, they have a foolproof path to progress based on what they learn. And when they're done with that, it'll be about 3 weeks, they'll probably come see me at another talk. And it's just a way for people to interact and get the help they need without coming once a week and they can't afford it. So a lot
Right.
of it is for the expense, but then the other part is for people who don't understand it. And then they'll go into a program or they'll go into a retreat. And so I have 2 free talks this week. One's called Unwind Anxiety on Wednesday, and the
Mm-hmm.
other one is a Sip and Social, kind of like what we're doing, and where we're going to be talking about emotional freedom and self-acceptance. And then on Thursday, we have the 5 hours to emotional freedom. And all of those, they're basically, the first two are free. The one for 5 hours, I have a price tag on it because I think if people pay for it, they actually come and they do it. And so hopefully that will turn out. And I'm just trying to get the word out there. I'm hoping to reach 10,000 people this year. We'll see.
All right. Well, wonderful. I think you're on the right track.
Yeah, 1,000 people so far.
Yeah.
1,093 so far.
Nice, nice. And so for anybody that is watching and listening, I will be putting the show notes and I'll have all the links to connect with Rose and I think the programs, I think in your form you filled out, you have the programs and stuff in there too, I believe.
Maybe I'll shoot them over here. Let me
Yeah. Don't
some
put it
link.
in the chat because I probably won't get that. So shoot me an email with that information because it'll be a few days before I get this out. I have someone who actually does the actual publishing for me. So because I don't really have a lot of time to do that anymore, thank goodness. Um, but it's beautiful. So everybody if you don't need this work, I'm sure you're like me and you know somebody who does. So this will be I'll be sharing this podcast with my friends family to see if they will listen and if they will maybe touch on some of that. Maybe they might want to come to your talks or something, I don't know. But for me, when somebody is dealing with something like that, even the slightest chance that it's going to help is well worth the time, right?
If I wouldn't have taken the time to actually listen to that intern and the doctors all said, you're never going to gain your memory back. You're not going to be normal. You'll never walk again. I can ride horses. I can surf. I can do all kinds of things. And at 56, you wouldn't think that I'd be able to do any of that. And I can. And so if I would have stayed where they thought I should be, I would be using a cane.
Yeah.
And I would never be able to do artwork. Like the artwork behind me, that's mine.
Oh,
And
nice.
I do all kinds of things, woodworking
Yeah.
and I can write now. I can walk my dogs and I can,
Yeah. See,
but
my friend, she used to do all kinds of arts and crafts and all those things. And I've even tried to encourage her to pull out all those things and maybe start with something. But it's like she just can't, it doesn't connect and she just can't do it.
and it won't until the inflammation and the blood flow gets corrected. And there's probably been some damage done in the way that it works, especially
Yeah.
with sparking. And so she may need to actually change her diet and do a few things and be in some therapy, some physical therapy or some different kinds of go see a neurologist, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
when you're working with things that are electrical, it is so easy to just disregard. Like my sister 5 years ago, I thought, man, there's you don't sound right. Something's going on. She had dementia, and her
Mm.
family was so close to her, they
They
didn't
didn't
see
see.
it
Yeah.
was too late. And then my other sister, same thing. Didn't see it until it was too late, and she ended up, both of them passed away. So I've had three sisters pass away from Alzheimer's, which is that's why
Wow.
I had my brain checked. It scared me.
Yeah. Well,
But
your brain's already been through enough and you've been doctoring on it since then. That's the one thing that saved you. Because I'm always looking for what is the biggest challenge I've ever had? What is the good thing that came out of it, you know? And so that just sounds like it was meant to be.
right. The biggest challenge that I've ever had is my daughter was killed in the crosswalk when she
Oh
was
my
15.
gosh.
And that is one of the things that pushed me into being a grief expert because I looked at it from the standpoint of um, she had to die, but I get to live. And the student who hit her was her friend, and that was just
Oh,
heart crushing. And I had to walk him back to the intersection and sit with him there and say, she wouldn't want you to stop playing golf and basketball and doing your music. She would want you to live because she had to die, but you get to live. And so take all of the things that you would have done for other people and put them on yourself right now and get better. And I had to take that same advice for myself. And
yeah.
one of the biggest challenges that I went through in life is almost every client I see, it's their path to progress. I use something from her death in almost every session, what I learned, how I moved
Oh,
through, how I was able to, you don't get a break when, as a therapist, you don't get a break. I had to go back to work a week later and I wasn't quite right. And it did mess up some of my patients. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, it was hard for me to hear and listen, and I had to cancel a few, quite a lot, for the first couple of weeks. Like, I'm just not up to this. I'm super sorry. We're gonna have to reschedule. And of course, you cannot burden your patients with it. And um, things happen like that. But you're right, everything happens, and the way that it does provides you with information that becomes someone else's transformation.
yeah.
And it works that way. That's how it works. That's how life works. It's a recycle.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you can get to the place where you can start looking for those gifts or those things good that can come from something, then you're taking your power back and not being a victim. And it can be very easy for a lot of people to fall into that victimhood. And so I encourage anybody that's watching or listening, definitely take heed to these words because um, you will never get better as a victim.
No. And you're only a victim in the minute it's happening. Once it's
Yeah,
over, you have survived. You're in survival mode.
that's right.
You
And you get to
stay
choose.
in, they stay in victim mode for the rest of their life. They don't need
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Once you're done with the incident, you're in survival mode. And you
Yeah.
can go through survival mode to into action if you desire, but you actually have to desire that. No one can do that for you. And
Right.
so I desired to keep going and I desired to help other people with my process and hopefully NeuroFlow will catch on.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm
Yep.
sure it will. I'm sure it will.
Thanks for having me here today. It's been a pleasure meeting you.
Well,
And
thank you. I will tell you, I am just so blown away with your story and all the things that that you've had to or not, all the things that you have endured and come out on the other side as such a smiling, positive, bubbly person, and being able to harness all of that information to help others is a God gift.
I think so too, but life wouldn't be worth living if I didn't have something to give and someone to give it to. And
Yeah,
so as you get into empty nest and people come and go out of your life, you find new ways to and new places to pour your energy into. And
yeah.
so one is the work that I'm doing with retreats, and I really, really love it. So hopefully other women will want to come. I have the next one, the fourth one will be the Women's Emotional Freedom Retreat, September 12th. I'll get you that info.
Okay.
Um,
Where's
and
that going to be?
you
Or
know,
is that online or is that in person?
in person. It's on
Okay.
the beach here in Indian Harbor. And
Okay.
then Mother Daughter Retreat is in Haines, Florida. It's north of here about an hour. And it is in what looks like a castle. It is amazing. And it's
Mm.
for 4 days and 3 nights to rebuild or to reconstruct or to reboot, or to even reset. Like say you and your daughter have been separated because she has her own family and you have yours, and or she's going off to college or she's um, graduating high school and you guys are missing connections. And this is a weekend to just get a photo shoot done, to get some togetherness and intimacy building, and to reframe how you want the rest of your life's relationship to be. And so that's a really special retreat.
Mm.
I
Sounds
love
like
that.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the house is absolutely amazing. So I know that they'll love it, even if they just come for the weekend and they already have a great relationship. It's still going to be a great retreat.
Mm. Beautiful,
Yeah.
beautiful. So definitely give me the information of both of those. I'll put it in the show notes. And I've got some friends. Maybe I'll reach out to them and see if they want to all go to that first one, whatever you said it was.
The Women's Emotional Freedom Retreat
Yeah.
is in the mornings, we do sunrise yoga every day. And Alex is my NeuroFlow yoga master. And she and I have worked for about 5 years on getting a flow done that connects the brain and body through movement. And then we do sound therapy with sound bowls and we get a sound bath going. We have binaural beats. You get a set of headphones. You get your own personal NeuroFlow mat, which is extra large, and you get a beach mat and it comes with a carrying case. You get a journal, you get a planner. It's just amazing. You go home with a kit to maintain what you learn about yourself and make some decisions about your mood and attitude, how you want to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you don't change, like you said, you're choosing to stay the same. But this is your opportunity to make
Yeah.
fun and to make change. And it works. We also have a sunset cruise too. We boat
Oh,
ride to a
nice.
river restaurant. On the way back, the sun sets in the river while we're on it, and it's nice. We also do a painting. So you pour out your emotions on the canvas, and then you pour out, like say, red is for anger, and you can also choose the emotion you want to change it to, which would be passion. So you choose something to be passionate about, and when you pour them on the canvas, they slightly modify. And the color tone changes to be the positive of what you want.
Nice, nice. I love it. I love it. So definitely make sure you send me that information and I will definitely be sharing it out and I'll be sharing it with all of you guys that are watching and listening. And make sure that you leave a message for Rose. I'm sure she would love to connect with each one of you in some at some level and at some point. So definitely leave a comment and our question for Rose. And if there's anything you want to talk to me about, make sure that you do that as well. And this has been enlightening and exceptionally fun. So, thank you so much, Rose, for being here. And I'm going to leave everybody with one of my favorite quotes. The best way to predict the future is create it. And that is what we're talking about right here. And so, I will see you guys soon. Mwah.